Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today, this is video 2 of the Rossi Brawler, kind of a cross-draw holster. We're going to use a strap, and we've also got a flap that's going to close. So if we put this in here like so, we've got a flap that comes over that's going to snap. So it's going to hold it nice and secure, and it'll go across the body like this with a strap. So what we're going to do today is continue from the pattern from the last video into the leather today. So come on in and let's get started. All right, something I didn't mention in the first video, if you haven't seen that, go back, take a look at the last video I put up before this one that shows doing the pattern for this holster. One thing I didn't mention was that this could be used then for a left or right-handed. All you have to do is flip it over when you cut your leather out and make sure that your finished side that you want up is up for a left or a right-handed. So I cut this out for a right-handed holster, and there's the flap. And I've already cased this leather with a sponge and some water, and what I'm going to do, I've already beveled my edges. This is 10-ounce leather off of a side. It's pretty stout, and beveled it, and I went ahead and made my guidelines, grooved it for my stitching and my punching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start down here on this side, and I am going to do it all the way around just to keep it kind of fluid around the flap. Normally I would only do it on the side you're going to see and then the flap itself, but I'm going to go ahead and do it all the way around. It won't take that long, and then it'll be nice and uniformed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a large veining tool and a mule's foot tool. So I'm going to go through on my stitching line that I grooved, and I'll show you my pattern that I'm going to make. And I'm just putting these veining stamps end to end from one another. Then I'm going to come back with the mule's foot right between each one of them. And you can see I've already done about 7 inches of that. It didn't take hardly any time. So there's my veining tool, the large one, and then my mule's foot's between each one. So I'm going to continue that all the way around until I get all the way back down to the end here. So I'll go ahead and do this. I'll speed you up a little bit, and we'll move on from there. Alright, so now I'll go ahead and take the mule's foot and continue between each one of those veining stamps. And as soon as I get to the end, I'll speed this up too. And as soon as I get to the end, I'll go back to normal speed. Alright, so there we are at the end. Got all of the decorative stamping done all the way around the flap and on the holster itself. Now if we fold that over and slide the brawler in, let's take a look and see how that looks. Pull the flap down. That's going to end up looking nice. So the next thing I need to do is go ahead and put my stitching holes in. And as thick as this leather is, I think I'm going to do, I've done it before on some videos, but I think I'm going to mark these. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to drill them. That'll give me a nice clean hole to stitch in. And I won't have to kill myself trying to yank that needle through that skinny little hole. I'm looking to see if I want to use this 4-prong punch or this one. There's a difference between the spacing. And I think I'm going to use the one that's spaced out a little bit further. Now all I'm doing at this point is making a mark so I'll know exactly where to drill. And somebody asked on another video just here lately on one of my drilling stitching hole videos, somebody asked what size bit that was, and it is a 1/16 of an inch bit that I use, and it does a nice job. Drills a nice clean little tiny hole that you can't tell that it's been drilled. I don't think. I think it looks great when you're done. Alright, so let me take a look at this and try one time to see how hard it is to go through this thickness and what it does. You got to remember this was cased too, so it's going to be a little bit easier to get through. And it's going in okay, but as you can see on the back side, I'm still not getting through all the way. So I am going to drill this. So I'll mark those and then drill them. I am going to start out on this other end on the other side, and I'll mark that with my punch and then come over so that it matches up on this side. Then as I go up, I'll know exactly how many of these holes that I need to mark. Those two match at the bottom, and I can come all the way up here and mark the top hole. I just mark it with a scribe, and I'm just marking it so I know where to stop, so that all my holes match up and I have the same number of holes. So I can go ahead and work my way up this side. Now, again, I'm not concerned about how deep I'm going because I am going to drill these. So I get me a good, nice mark and a starter hole basically for my drill bit. And that's more of a guide for the bit more than anything, so that I get a nice, clean, straight hole. So I work my way up to that mark. And then now I have all of my pilot holes for my stitching. So that's ready to be drilled. So I'll come back and after I have that set up and show you how I do that. Alright, so all I've got is just a little inexpensive central machine from Harbor Freight, a little tabletop drill press. It works great for this. I just take a softer piece of 1x4 had laying around, and I put it down as my backer so I have something to drill through or to as I drill through my leather. So I set it to where it comes down and it touches the wood for my depth. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and start drilling. Again, this is a 16-inch bit, drill bit. Actually, it's compared to the larger punch that I used, the bit is just a hair smaller than the punch hole. So you wouldn't even know the difference. But I'm telling you, on this real thick, heavy, stiff leather, I have found that drilling these holes makes it so much easier for me to stitch. If you've stitched very much of this thick, heavy cowhide, you know what I'm talking about. You can wear your fingers and thumbs out pulling those needles through there if you don't have a good, nice, clean hole. And this seems to give me that. You can see how once I get through there, it wants to pull the leather up, which is great because what that does is it cleans out the hole. And I use my stitching punch as a guide so that all my holes are exactly the same apart, same distance apart. And I'll show you, as soon as I finish this side, I'll show you the back side. And that'll give you a pretty good tell of how clean of a hole as long as you don't force these bits or anything. Yeah, they're small, but that leather's not galling that much at all, so they last a long time. Alright, now, if you take a look on the back side of that, look how clean those stitching holes are. So that makes it so much easier to put the needle and your sinew or whatever you're using through there. So I'm going to go ahead and do this other side real quick. I'll speed you up and then I'll come back. And then there's the other side with the holes. Nice, clean, all the way through. So the holes are done. I'm going to get rid of this and I'll be right back. Alright, so we've got the drilling done on the stitching holes. We've got all the holes drilled ready for stitching. There's the front, there's the back, and we've got our stamping done. Now it's time to put some dye on this, and I want to do a light brown. So I'm using Fibing's light brown leather dye. And I always pour it into these little Dollar Tree plastic little trays. I get like a dozen of them or 8 of them or something for $1.25. It makes it nice because when I'm done, I just throw it all away. I don't want to put any dye back in my bottle or use it directly out of my bottle because I don't want it contaminated with anything that I might pick up off of the leather or off of my dyeing cardboard. So we're going to go with this light brown. I'm going to make sure that I get down in all those crevices of that stamping. I am using a wool dauber, and this is veg tan leather. And at first, especially as big as this is, I want to just get some coverage on it and get down in those crevices of my stamping and my stitching. And it will absorb it pretty quickly, so you will go through some dye on a piece this big. And then what we can do is, as that kind of dries, we can go ahead and do the edges. And I left these edges raw. I did not do anything special to them. I did not slick them up. Just left them raw. Of course, I did bevel them, but we'll see what that ends up looking like. sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I think it looks good that you don't have the real shiny slick edge, but on other projects I like it. So we'll see how this one looks when we're finished. So I'm just getting all the edges there. Then I'll turn it over and we'll do the back side. Now this back side has almost like, I'm not really sure, it's almost like a smoother machine type finish. It's not very rough like I'm used to. I think I like it, but I've just never seen it before. So you can see I'm already out of dye. It doesn't take long for that large piece to absorb that up. And you'll notice I always wipe my lid real good with a clean rag before I put the lid of my bottle before I put my lid back on. Make sure I don't make a mess with that. I get all the excess wiped off. So I'm going to do the same thing that I'm going to do to the front onto the back. I'm going to get it covered. Let that dry. And then I've got a clean rag here, and these are just disposable towels. They're not paper towels. They're like shop rags, but they're white. And what I can do is put some more while that's trying to dry. I can kind of saturate that a little bit because I want to get this as even as possible, and it's such a large area. What I can do is come back while it's still moist, trying to dry, place a coat on there that'll stay on top for just a couple of minutes. Take me a nice clean cloth, ball it up, and then start going over it. And what that'll do is that'll spread that dye out evenly instead of a ½ inch wide dauber mark. Then I get a nice even coating of my dye. So we don't get those streaks on there. Let's turn it over and do the other side, the front side, and you can see it's just drinking that up. Put a little more dye in there, and let's do the same thing we did on the back side. Put it on kind of heavy and let it sit on top there. The key is to get it fully coated and get wiping it before all of it dries. That's the key. So we'll get up in here, get a good coat on that. See, it's soaking it up pretty good. So we get back around to here, and then I can switch to my clean cloth. And I'm going in circular motions so that I make sure I get good coverage, good even coverage. All the way across that. You can see down here it's already drying. Down here on the flat. So now we can let that dry, and then we're ready to go on to the next stage and put in the snap and do the stitching. All right, so there's number 2 of a 3 video series on making this cross draw brawler flapped holster that's going to have a strap on it. So we'll be able to throw it over our neck and shoulders, and it'll be like a sling, and we can carry that thing around no problem. As you can see, it is a very large size, so it is heavy also. So that's going to be the easiest way to carry it around in the woods or on the four-wheeler or whatever. So I appreciate you coming along. Please come back next week. We'll see the conclusion of this. It should turn out very nice. And we'll do the straps, the snap, the stitching, and then we'll have a finished product. So I appreciate you coming along. Appreciate you sharing the time with me. And if you haven't yet, please smash that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. It's free. So until next time, like I always say, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.